live any moment. Hey folks, what's up? Check it out. This is DJL7, and today I have a very special guest. This is actually, I'm gonna let him introduce himself though, but actually the work that I do, which is front and center on my website called Rep My Block, as in terms of really establishing local control and doing this kind of local work that's really so essential. This is actually a partner that I'm actually very excited to actually be introducing to you and to do some potential future work together. But you'll find more about that in the program. We're going to run this guy through the online activist interview series. Once again, I have over 100 activists around the world that I've asked these same questions of. And you can actually, I encourage you to check that out. There's a wide range of activists with different experience levels from different locales who have different thoughts to share. But after this is over, we're going to chop through that pretty quickly. We're going to get to our own specific work that's going to be coming up. So just to introduce yourself to my audience, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, DJ. Thank you for inviting me. And my name is Ralph Yozzo, and I'm a lifelong New Yorker and a county committee member of the Democrat Party. And so I'm very happy to meet you and to hear what you're doing. And I'm come from a computer background, so I want to use computers to serve people. And so instead of the opposite, where they use it against us, so that's where I come from.
All right. So the thing is that everybody kind of starts off in activism in different ways, right? What's the first issue that kind of like got you into being an activist or politically minded?
Oh, good question. Like, I never even knew about this county committee at all. And I went to a Christmas party, and someone told me that she represents, she's very humble, and she says, but she runs and she represents this little block. And I said, what do you mean by you represent this little block? And that's how I learned about it. And this was late in the game because I come from upstate, also New York State, upstate, and they're very unpolitical, it appears, right? And so, or less, my family is not political at all. So I learned very late in life about the game that we're playing.
Yeah, it's
I hope.
deliberately, actually silenced, and it's deliberately kept obscure to actually allow the party leadership to retain control. This is actually true in both parties, Republicans and Democrats, and unfortunately, it's also going on in the Green parties and Libertarians too, to an extent. So, no place is really safe from this particular phenomenon. But so, Run My Block is actually a desire to actually, you know, give little people a chance to actually be a part of the conversation to set the party priorities. Now, I think that you're also doing more individual work to take it to the next level, right? And that's good, right? We need people like yourself to be a part of that. So very exciting. Yeah. So that's now the thing is that was that really your start as being politically active, or maybe it's not. But
Well,
were there any
I,
other
I have
issues that particularly captured
I've
you?
always I've I've always been interested in open data. Remember, there was laws that said that we have to open up government, and I was there when Gail Brewer very proudly announced that, and I helped with the group that calls themselves Beta NYC, and what I found was I was taking the open data and putting it on maps and making it transparent, and these so-called open data groups did not want that. They wanted to count the number of squirrels in Central Park. That's what open data was, or where the city bikes are at every moment of day. And I was taking property tax information and putting it on a map and making it transparent. And they did not want that. They did not want anybody talking about important things like government and party leadership and county committee and organizational meeting. No, no, no. Let's count the squirrels in Central Park. That's the most
Yeah,
important.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of actually I just got a text message this morning from someone who actually decided to sit out from my I have actually a street artist showcase award ceremony, and showcase for people that's people don't become street artists for their pride, right? They're trying to make it. But he said he was turned off by my politics, but once again, it's a lot of it is a smoke screen. And the fact
Yes.
of the matter is that both sides are to be looked at with. So I really appreciate that information. That's absolutely how I fear that a lot of I'm not saying Republicans are free from this well, but the Democrats are here in power and they want to keep the status quo and they don't want to have difficult conversations. And there's a lot of groups that are out there that supposedly, like you said, open source, trying to really free the data. It's a trap, right? So thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Yes, I can go on and on, but the Checkbook NYC, all these fake pretenses of open data, they're a disaster. They actually make things worse. The campaign finance data is just a disaster. I mean, imagine if I always picture a person gets their tax return, right? And in the old days, you used to have a piece of paper, and you just vomit on the piece of paper, and then you fold it up and you put it in the envelope and mail it back to the IRS. That's what we're getting. We're getting sheer vomit. And of course, nobody is checking it because anybody with any common sense who knows computers does not pay attention to this stuff because they can get paid millions of dollars doing computer tech work, right? So nobody is paying attention, right? Because they're paid off, and the people that are in power, they want it this way. It goes to the Supreme Court case, which we could talk about if you want, that said New York State political clubs and law is stupid. Literally, U.S. Supreme Court justice called us stupid, and we continue.
Actually, maybe you could share your screen and show that actually right now. I may have be able to just call that up. So go ahead
Oh,
and make that happen. Yeah.
oh yes, definitely. It just shocked me. I'll describe it too. But Justice Stevens quoted Justice Marshall and called us stupid. New York State, and it's not. It's in articles. Yeah, let's just see. I want to find push to abolish rent.
Yeah.
No,
I really
here.
appreciate this because a lot of this work has already been done. There's been a lot of positive work done, but that work is silenced and that work is actually suppressed. So as yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely, because justice upheld, let's see, blatantly corrupt. Yeah, so let me share. I want to find the Google one. Oh yeah, here it is in Google, of course. They see it, but you're right. It's a news article. The New York Times writes about it or whatever, and then it just disappears off the face of the earth. So here, I'll share, and it's not like I'm making this stuff up. It's just everybody has their own world, right? And not everybody is doing a research project every day. So let me just see screen remote. Oh, here's stupid. Share. Okay, so I'm not sure. Do you see it?
yeah, I'm sharing adding to the stage right now. Go ahead.
You can see it, right? In
Yeah.
2008. Cool.
If you
So
press
it
Control
definitely.
Plus, it might make it a little bigger, so it's
Oh
easier
yeah,
to read.
exactly. That I thank you for that. Yeah, I
No
definitely do
problem.
that all the time. Yeah.
Sometimes it works,
Plus.
sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, Shift Plus does work too. Yeah. Let me move
Okay.
this over. Okay, so basically, anyone can search on this themselves. Stupid, Stevens, New York State, U.S. Supreme Court, whatever you want to search for, you'll find it. It's right here in 2008, a case where Justice Stevens famously quoted Justice Marshall and said the Constitution does not prohibit legislatures from enacting stupid laws. What case was he talking about? He was talking about a a New York State judge named Margarita Lopez Torres, right?
Yeah.
She sued the Board of Elections. Imagine a judge suing the Board of Elections in New York State. And she won in the New York State Supreme Court and the appellate court in New York State. But then, of
Yeah.
course, the parties um, uh, took that to the U.S. Supreme Court, right? They appealed, the parties, both of them, Republican and Democrat. And you know what? The U.S. Supreme Court said that party bosses are allowed to be party bosses. And there's nothing in the Constitution that bars them. In fact, the Constitution protects them, right? But that was 9-0 decision against the what Margarita Lopez Torres said is it's an impossible task to overcome these party bosses and become a New York State Supreme Court justice. It's
I
impossible
just want to
because
also mention that on the screen that you're sharing, it says context. The statement was made during a case concerning New York judge selection system. You see right there underneath? No, it's in that
absolutely,
same little thing. So it's right there, folks. You could see it, right? I definitely encourage you to do your own research on this. We're not making this up. Once again, my
yes,
man has shown you what you can Google, right? You can bring this up and learn about these very important topics that the news, the media is in bed with the political bosses, party bosses, and this is true for the Greens and Libertarians as well. and they're making sure certain things don't get talked about. This is very essential. So thank you so much for sharing that. This is
Yeah,
actually
I'm going to
close to
stop
my
sharing.
core work.
But I want to end with a note in that case. If you read the actual case for the listeners and everyone, if you read the actual case, it gives phone calls. And one scenario that sticks in my mind is people in Brooklyn know the name Vito Lopez and they know the name Clarence Norman, right? And they're in the case, and you can hear phone calls. Margarita Lopez Torres became a civil court judge, and they call her and they tell her, look, you got to hire my daughter, right? And she interviews, and it says, no, she's not qualified. I'm not, or it wasn't her daughter, his daughter first. It was someone else, right? And she said the man's not qualified. She called the justice that he served under, and literally, the justice said he was a mediocre worker and he was mostly on the phone doing party politics, right? And so she
Yeah.
said, no, I'm not hiring him. And then Clarence Norman was outraged. Vito Lopez was outraged. This is what's happening in Brooklyn. Unbelievable. And probably everywhere, in New York State.
It really is. And this form of patronage actually makes sure that people who are honest, activists are actually a threat to the system, and right because of they make them look bad and they're embarrassed, and they actually make sure that activists like myself that all our work is suppressed so they can have their shills be in place. So it's very disturbing. I really appreciate you talking about that because this is actually widespread and it's completely out of control.
And it's so important because it has to do with millions and hundreds of millions, tens of millions, billions of dollars. That's what's happening. They're controlling the billions. The New York City budget is bigger than all states except for like four.
So
It's
before
just,
we started this program, I actually asked you to maybe on monthly or maybe every 2 months, we could do kind of like a get together. I'm actually going to be on Republican County Committee soon, and we could actually right. I know the party leadership won't be crazy about us having discussions, but there's some things that need to be talked about. And the third party space, once again, they're ignoring these issues because they have their own abuses going on. So let's see if we can actually talk about the people's issues versus what the party. Not saying the party leadership is all bad or all good, but we have our own interests. We must protect them. So, yeah,
absolutely. Yes. I'm up for that. Yes.
great. Sounds like a great team up. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Often Democrats are accused of being socialists, things like that. Whatever that word means, right? What is a fascist? What is socialist? It's quite unclear. But for yourself, right? Do you have a particular ideology that you follow or you um,
I
claim?
Is that yeah, I basically don't like to see waste because I think just like the saying "waste not, want not," if I see
Okay.
waste and I see abuse and I see it, it makes me sad because then there's people that don't know the game, they're out of the game, they're got nothing, and these other people are wasting, right? So I would call myself common sense. I know that's a vague term, but not to waste. Don't you teach your own family, your own children, your own, uh, not to waste? It seems, even the word waste seems, so that would be my core belief is let's not waste. But the problem comes with people that are in the game, that are getting the patronage. They hear the word waste and they think, oh my God, they're coming for me. So it's
We are.
dangerous. Yeah, it's a dangerous
I
word.
understand.
Imagine waste. Being against waste is politically incorrect. It doesn't make any sense.
A lot of them feel this way. I'm sorry to say, but the thing is that I've been around government. I've been in right, even in student government, like have this mentality. Even people that are installed. There's a lot of people feel like the government is an infinite supply of money, and they feel like they should also be turned on to this kind of wasteful kind of like a patronage system, and they feel like it's helping them, and they actually stand to get in the way of a lot of honest. It's weaponized the people that are put into positions. They're actually weaponized against the communities they're supposed to serve. So yeah,
Right.
and I really appreciate your answer because there's a lot of people who say socialist or capitalist actually, but I think that a lot of those kinds of like marketed terms show a maybe this is harsh, but I think it shows the immaturity, right? Someone like yourself who's kind of come with their own ideas, their own systems. Like you see a lot of people who like study Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? The people that are more advanced, you don't see them saying that this is the best unless they're trying to sell their system, right? Or unless they're trying to get you to enroll in their school. They won't say the style's undefeatable or it's the best, but it's the people that are the white belts that have just signed on that are there completely repeating the lines saying that, this system is unbeatable. 90% of fights go to the ground, right? Yeah. Not all, and it's really marketing. So the people that are kind of new to it really rely on that marketing system to prop them up versus people that have actual life experience. So I really appreciate your answer, and I think it shows a sign of political maturity. Just for myself, though,
I
what
I
do I
agree.
know, right?
And
Yeah.
I made a note. I said robot. I mean, basically, the people that are just repeating, maybe they're in the game, they're getting the patronage, they're getting the graft, and so they have to vote like a robot, right? They have to vote to protect their patronage or their graft or the. My dad even said it. My dad said, "I have to vote blah blah, or I won't be working." Right? So,
Yeah.
so, and I never understood it as a kid. I said, "What does that even mean?" Like, yeah. So
One of the
we
places that this happens a
need less
lot, by the way, is inside of the unions. Unions are actually required to, engage in certain. Some of them are encouraged to engage in political work to a certain extent. The leadership is actually in bed with the political party leadership, and they actually work to suppress. I'm not saying I'm against unions in general, but the thing is
oh,
that we have to be real about unions can be good, they can be bad, and people just have this kind of one-track mind where union is good. Doesn't have to be. So you need to be critical of what's right of what's going on. So people have a label and they think this Democrats good, Republicans bad. Republicans good, Democrats bad. Not so simple. Not so
no,
simple, right? So I,
I
I really
couldn't
appreciate that.
I
All right.
couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I say is people have to make up their own mind. I'm conservative on some issues. I'm less conservative on other issues. Yeah, so there's no good and bad. There's just and I think we should turn it all around. We shouldn't be listening to the candidates what they think. The candidates should be listening to the community. Like,
And that's isn't it funny how the press likes to focus on the candidates instead of people that have been active for 20, 30 years, people that are more knowledgeable on the topic, because it's an easy sell. So there is this kind of shenanigans going on. And I'm glad that you, once again, a lot of people out there, they try to run for, I do this many years, right? Yeah. They want to run for mayor. They want to run for president. They want to wave the magic wand. Start from the ground up. Start from county committee. Start from, right, learning the process, building your base. It's a sign of political immaturity to kind of like be like a high school baller and say I'm going to make it to NBA tomorrow and God's going to help me or whatever, right? You want to say, not saying that
I couldn't agree more.
yeah, this doesn't, yeah, there's just a lot of people just don't know what they're doing, and our system doesn't teach them this. So can you really blame them, right? So really appreciate you. Yeah. All right. So the thing is that now that we understand, the theology, now sometimes people, to help them really kind of clear up, do you have someone who maybe helps represent some of the ideas that you have, or someone that you look up to, maybe another common sense politician, so people can better understand, um, right, some of the policies that you might support?
Well, I hate to say this, but the people I read are like Thomas Paine, all the people that have been, uh, beaten down over time, right? Thomas Paine, if you read Common Sense, he was one of the first people that talked about rights, like that he wrote The Rights of Man. So if you're talking about somebody contemporary, I don't have much, uh, uh, I don't see much good. And Jim Walden, I'm impressed by Jim Walden, and someone that's independent, outside thinker, U.S. attorney, honest. The word integrity comes up in, I hate to say this, but I went to one of these political club things, and Jim Walden spoke about integrity and blah blah blah, and then Wiener steps up, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is like the anti integrity. Anthony Weiner. I think. How does he? Oh, it's just
Yeah.
so. Yes, those my heroes are people that have been beaten down over the centuries, and so
Shout out to Jim Walden for a second. Now, just so you know, while he talks about integrity, that could be a cheap play, but just so you know, he does have a body of work and significant, and maybe you could screen share some of the stuff that Jim Walden has actually taken on the establishment. So, I do also respect his work. I've been reaching out. It hasn't really gone forward, but I'm sure he's super busy. But once again, right, the fact that they talk about integrity, that's a cheap game, but he actually has some real, so maybe you could share some of his accomplishments, because once again, that Jim Walden is something that's also interesting to myself. He's running for
right. I
Michigan
haven't
in the cycle.
I haven't prepared for that, but I definitely I can do that. But I can all we can just go to Jim Walden for jimfornyc.com and people can see. And
We may
but
be
that's
doing some work together, just so you know. I actually have some other. I was. I actually potentially maybe getting called to work on his petitioning and stuff like that. Um, so let me see if I could even maybe bring up because I
yeah,
saw some
you
stuff
do it.
myself.
I would love
Yeah.
that. And also, I helped just yesterday in Brooklyn, and we went up and down the street. You know, basically getting ready for petitioning, and it'll be easier for us because we can get anybody,
Yeah. Well,
any
that's
registered voter.
yeah. They're the same limitations. We got to get a lot more, but the thing is that you don't. You can get Republicans or Democrats to sign. It's absolutely true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point.
So
Yeah.
all right, let me just actually share this right quick. I think I did bring this
Yeah. I
up.
want to see what it looks like.
Okay. Well, actually, a good place to actually, not that this is, well, Wikipedia actually says something about Jim Walden right here. So let's take a look at what's going on here. He served as assistant U.S. attorney, right? Could be good, but he also has done white collar crime, antitrust law, and actually the trusts and the monopolies are a huge problem. So, the Conor McGregor stuff, that's all outside of our stuff, but he's had class action lawsuits against WeWork, against the New York City Department of Education, against NYCHA. So he's taken on some of the institutions that are really there that are super corrupt that I've been actually taking on myself. So he's also prosecuted heroin traffickers. So he's and members of the most prominent mafia families. So he actually has, that's a dangerous position. So he
Yeah.
has some, accolades and some significant work. So this is pretty interesting, right? So I also have taken note of this particular candidate. So I agree with you there. All right, cool.
Yes.
So that's something we'll be getting into later. But let's go on with the people learning about yourself. So a lot of people come to this with different levels of background of experience, blah blah blah, right? But what is your actual what in the activist world? What are you most proud of accomplishing?
Well, I personally like organizing data, right? Organizing information. So accomplishment. I've served as a county committee member. I've served as a community education council. I was in Borough Hall when the whole Eric Adams stuff was happening. I didn't even know it was happening. So,
Which
but
one? There's a
uh,
bunch of stuff.
the one, the district attorney, the flight upgrades, because it was all happening when he was borough president.
The turkey stuff that was the most prominent. But then his fire chief went down. Then a
Yeah,
whole bunch of other people went down. So
right,
we talk
right,
about
right.
the turkey one. That was the biggest one, I think, right?
Well, the turkey, yes, and the flight upgrades and the money in the desk and basically the U.S. attorney saying that. I mean, if I knew that, I would have looked through the desk to saying, "Oh my God, there's millions of dollars in cash in here." But yeah, no, but I don't think that is an accomplishment. I think I've set up an election database that takes campaign finance information and puts it all in one place, make it searchable, shareable across people, because that's is as you were saying and I'm saying is these databases and this open transparency in these transparency laws and are just shams. They're basically there to just check the box. Yep, we made it transparent. But going back to my vomit example, look, we vomited out this data, and look, it's transparent. How can you say it's not transparent? It's right there on the website, but it's impossible to share. It's impossible to understand. Look, try to understand the New York City budget. There's budget lines that mean nothing. We talked to one of the people that are supposed to know, and you know what they said? I said we need one place to see this data, to understand what's happening in real time, where the money's going. And you know what the person said to us? Someone that's in power, in control. I won't name unless you want, and but you could probably guess. He said we don't even have that. So our city council doesn't even have access to what's happening in the budget, and they get budget lines that are $6 billion. Sign off. I say, well, what is the $6 billion for? Just sign off. Just what? Sign it.
And if they should dare to open their mouth, if they should dare to start an investigation, they will be primary. There will be people in the background that are making moves. They're scared. And
That's
really, right, even if they want to do the right thing, it is our job as community members to get in and help help them or hurt them, or who knows, right? They're not all good, all bad. But when they do the right thing, we need to help that. But when they do weird, crooked stuff, or they just co-sign stuff that's actually hurting the community, we need to be aware, because without us being involved, it's unfair for them, and they're going to actually go against our interests because we're not paying attention.
And I want to pick up on what the words you said is primary them. Primary. Most people think of primary as an adjective, but in this political world, the word primary, I'm going to primary you, is a verb. It's ridiculous. You know, you just said it without even thinking twice. But if you talk to the people on the street, they're going to say, "The hell are you talking about? You primary them? What does that mean?" Right? So we have to bring light on this. And what you said is true. FDR even said, he said, "Make me do it." Right? You have a good idea, you got to make me do it because I can't do it myself. It's got to come from the people. Right? So I
Absolutely.
agree with you completely. And but we can't have these people washing their hands saying, "Well, you didn't make me do it, so I don't have to do anything." That's what's happening. I think here's my little speech on this is I think uh, public service should be such a burden or a love, but it's hard such a hard task that after 2 years you're you're out. You're saying this is too much. It's killing my family. It's killing my health, and I'm out. Right? But instead, it's the opposite. We serve the public servant. The constituency serves them, and that's not right. They serve us, right? We are the constituency. And when I use words like constituency, they get angry at me. They say, "Oh, I say, wait a second, I'm the constituent. You're the representative," right? And they get angry, right? Because we can charge them for, um, there are charges for official misconduct. If they don't serve the constituency, there are legal reasons, legal remedies to that, right?
Talking about term limits right quick, just so you know, I may actually be, I have a mixed feeling about it, right? The thing is that term limits can actually limit the
The
lifetime of
good
good
one,
politics, but they can also, also hold people accountable. So I think that what might be a good compromise is we say that you can excuse yourself from term limits if there's a certain amount of community actual involvement at the ground level, right, holding you
great,
accountable. But if there is no right, if they're not meeting certain standards as in terms of keeping the community or having an open and transparent system, then there definitely should be term limits, because the thing is that they are incentivized to hold on to power, and this gets into really problematic ways. So maybe we could have it both ways, right? But
yes,
once again, by setting these standards, but the party leadership doesn't want to have any accountability, don't want to answer questions. And I get it from their position too, because the thing is that there will be an infinite line of people causing problems. That's why we got to help them by helping to set up rules in place where they have to be honest instead of engaging in these horrible shenanigans. So I'm not
right.
completely immune to the challenges that they face either. I've been playing it on many levels, right from the bottom to also I have a lot of acts with people at the top. So
I
um,
agree.
yeah.
Just to add to that is California, these western states actually have recall, the ability to recall. They have the ability to create ballot initiatives that are not legislation. We in New York State have no ability to do that. It all has to go through the legislature or the mayor or these charter commissions. No, in California, you just go out and you can set California, western states, they're ballot initiatives, and you just get enough signatures. Why do they have referendums that are astronomical, like Prop 13? And that's because they can do that. We can't. I wrote to the Howard Jarvis Commission. I said, "How do you guys do that? How do we do that here in New York State?" They say, "You can't do it.
Okay.
It's against the law here." Imagine
Appreciate
that.
that. Now, another project I'm actually very excited to hear about. We talked about this before the show started, but Rep My Block is actually, just so you know, the New York State voter database is free. I've been talking to people in other states. Rep My Block is available on GitHub, which is actually a free open source software kind of library where people can download software so you can run it yourself. You don't have to upload it specifically to our database. But the thing is that there's over, I think, 8 million records of voters inside of the database, so it crashes out most databases. So, consumer level ones. So the thing is that by making them available on the Rep My Block site, that people can actually download, right, for their assembly district and their election district, the list of all the voters, which is a very powerful political tool. But I think that you were deciding to take it to the next level, which is cool. We got to have contingencies. You said you're going to add on to this program, or maybe like, maybe a new feature, like as in terms of like allowing people to see maps and stuff like that. I'm very excited about that. Can you tell me a little bit more about this particular project?
Well, sure. I'll just set the stage. Is Rep My Block is great, and you're right. Big, you can't put 8 million rows into a Google Sheet. It just won't do it. In Excel does pretty well, but nobody should be having the entire database. And if they're not a programmer, they don't know database. They shouldn't be doing it to their own machine. We should be all sharing, right? Because that's what the establishment wants. They want everyone doing their own research project. Then they die, and so the project ends, and nobody's working together. Of course, they like that. So for maps, and then there's campaign finance data. That's all atoms. They atomize us with that too, because everybody's got to look at their database, and then it's unshareable. And then for voter database, so I can show with really simple search engine, like imagine a Google-like tool for the voter database, or for the voter results, or the campaign finance. Imagine Google working on that. Google can't really work on that because it's a political thing, right? And they have to stay above the fray, right? But nothing's stopping me, right? And so you tell me if you want me to show any of these, because I can show a voter database. I can show campaign finance, one place, shareable. I can show the election results. See, these campaign people, if you're a constituent and you go to their office, they know your name, right? Because you kind of have to give them your name. What do? The first thing they do is they look up in the campaign finance, how much are you a registered voter, first of all? If you're not a registered voter, then they can look up how much you vote. So they know exactly when you voted, right? Most people don't know this. Then they can look up how much have you contributed to them, or to their party, or to their campaign, or to their friends. And so even before you're, two words out of your mouth, they've already looked up all this stuff, right? And they can look, because they know where you live, so they can look up the vote results in your block. So not only do they know whether you voted or not, but they know approximately how you voted, right? So then that you open your mouth and you ask, well, I want blah, 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 blah. And they say, well, this guy never votes. He's hasn't contributed anything, he or she. He's like, I say, thank you very much. We'll get back to you. That's exactly what's happening.
I can't blame them either. You
Yeah.
understand, right? Yeah, I get it. So you're really revealing the secrets behind the sauce. It's absolutely true. Yeah, and there's actually a legislator from the Bronx. There's some. She actually talks about this in her video series as well. She was a newly elected person. I thought she was kind of cool, but she's also scared to talk with me. I don't doubt because she's being threatened by Democrat Party leadership. It is what it is. But there's some cool people in the Democrat Party, some cool people, Republicans that are actually addressing this, and I really love that so much. And you're absolutely right. Um, so right now we have Untel Gents 4-2 enhanced. Only Freemasons can vote counts. They aren't nothing in protests. Um, they may be involved. The Freemasons may be part of it, may not. There's probably other groups as well, right? Probably even international groups that are touching this information. Any stakeholder is going to be concerned with this stuff and figure it out, right? So, right there, I don't really know about the Freemasons, but I don't doubt that there's a lot of groups that are, power obsessed. I'm power obsessed, right? Trying to get justice. So there's different reasons, but very interesting. Okay, cool. So really appreciate you sharing that. And by the way, I know Rep My Block has a website, repmyblock.org. How can people stay on top of this? I'm really a big fan of this. Oh, quick question too. You said you're talking about the campaign finance stuff. There's already a site that kind of does this, something called Open Secrets. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I have investigated that. Yeah.
Okay, so
It,
maybe you're thinking on a more local level, maybe you could team up with them, maybe they're compromised. What's your understanding of Open Secrets and their whole thing in terms of revealing the money?
I have investigated, I've contacted, I love to work and collaborate, but it appears they are mostly at the federal level. And I think we have to make changes here at the local level in New York City and New York State. And so I've looked at their website for it it's okay, I guess, and it's funded like crazy by even Google funds it. And so I'd like to show the difference. I want feedback. I want to hear from people. If you want me to show the ease that we can take the New York State campaign finance data and the New York City campaign finance, merge it all into one place and make it shareable, I'd love to show that for a few seconds. And you can even learn things about what's happening in the campaign, right? Because I narrow it to 2025. I sort by amount descending, and suddenly this thing comes up. It's called uh, Fix the City Incorporated. And I said, what is this Fix the City? I didn't hear about that in the news. I didn't hear, but it's given millions and millions and millions of dollars to these political action committees. And why did I see that? Because I sorted on amount descending, right? And it just popped right up, you know. And in New York City, I have to admit, has a pretty good campaign finance website, but it's not shareable. It's not easily shareable. You have to do everything through PDF files and screenshots, and that's not the right way to do things. Imagine if everything you had to do with screenshots, right? Yeah, like,
Yeah.
that's what the
There's a
internet
multiple
was
reasons
built.
why this
Yeah,
happens,
sorry,
but
go ahead.
no, yeah, there's multiple reasons why this happens, but it's a good resource. And honestly, once again, right, even though Open Secrets like does have like positive things about it, we need to have contingencies. There'll be a huge target for acquisition. There'll be a huge target for to be corrupted, and because they have that name brand recognition, I'm not saying they all bad. I find it very useful. But once
Yes.
again, and they might even buy you out at some point, right? Which might, if you have like, if you can negotiate like keeping it open source or something, it might be an acceptable deal. But that all has to be happen in the business wise. But very cool, very
Yeah,
cool.
let me
Yeah,
show let me just show
yeah,
you want me to show just one example?
please. Yeah, I
Yeah,
plan on utilizing this resource for myself, and I think this is very has a lot of potential. So
yeah. So
I
I
plan on,
go
yeah,
here, I'll share, and so the viewers and everyone in history can see. It's as simple as this. And I'm going to say share screen, and I pick the tab. It's just called election search, and it's literally showing all the um, there's like 18 million records merged from New York City. And let me do make this bigger. This one is actually easier to make bigger because it's
okay,
and is that viewable? Pretty much viewable on.
yes, I can see with the screen. I mean, yeah,
Okay, good. And you see, there's about 18 million records here, 17.3, right? And
okay,
it's just in a little database that I set up, but it's really easy to do. And then it has all this. I mean, it's easy for me, but maybe not for everyone. And it has all these filters and facets. And one of the things we can filter on is election year. And let me just to show what low quality of data we have, right? If I
okay,
sort on date descending, you would think that 2025 would be the date, right? But no,
yeah,
somehow our vomit, going back to our theme, the vomit database, right? They have information in their database that's saying this has been political contribution from 2049. So unless
it
they're
just doesn't make sense. Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. And then also, if you do it the other way, there's some in the Roman Colosseum. They must be, here it is, the year 2004. I think Caesar Augustus or
oh,
Caligula
204, yeah, 204 AD, yeah, interesting. Okay,
maybe. Yeah. So this is the quality of our data, and it's just shocking. But I have a way around it. You can go down here. The data is so bad, and you can sort by election year, and you can just put in 2025. And I'll just give the example that I was giving before. And this is a little touchy too, so I want to do it carefully. Yeah, there it is. There's only uh, about 150,000 rows right now, and this is another. And look at this. Look what pops up. Fix the City. Have you heard of this Fix the City Inc? Have you heard of this, DJ?
no,
You
no, not
have
yet,
you
no.
heard? You haven't heard, right? Isn't it shocking? It's in the news because I said Who is this Fix the City? Where's this coming from? And of course, New York Times knows about it, but not everybody can read every article from every newspaper and every website. It's impossible, right? And what do they want you to do? They want you to talk about the Yankees. I'm going to stop sharing because I like to see you. Um, they want you to talk about the Yankees, right? And if you talk
Yeah,
about the Yankees, you're too busy, or the Mets, or whoever, you're too busy to be doing anything that might hurt them, right? So that's uh, insulting to me, I think.
I feel you on that. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, so we talked about you know, some of the I definitely think that's a very valuable work, and I do plan on actually making it part of my ongoing content because of I just think it's so valuable. So I really appreciate that. Now we're going to go to the covering the issues as activists, and then we're going to go to the then we'll talk about our own specific work after this. So the next question is going to be, what do you think are the most effective things that activists can do?
Oy, talk to your neighbor, build a political club, because I talk to people and they actually get frightened by the word political club. The first thing they shut down. No, I'm not signing. So we have to break the ice. And first of all, the most important thing we can do is realize that probably 99% of the people are not in the game, right? And so we're the majority, right? The people that are in the game are definitely going to squash us, right? And they don't reveal. An important thing to know is the people that are in the game, they don't say, "Hi, I'm getting blah 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 this graft." I'm not They're not going to tell you. They're simply going to be that critic. The one that's, "Oh, no, yeah. Yeah, he's a crazy, he's a troublemaker," right? But not to your face, of course. They do it behind your back. So, I think the most important is build your own network of people and spread the word. Not like a car salesman, more like a community involved person, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, and meet
and this
people
is
like
yeah, go ahead.
don't be afraid. My
And folks, I just want to tell you right now that all the communities I work with, from public housing to the wrongfully incarcerated and so forth, right? People that have disabled, things like that. A lot of times, the people that are running the not-for-profits, the people that are leading the activism and covered in the news, they will deliberately sabotage these people from actually getting involved in county committee, getting involved because they want to be the ones who manage the change and depend on what pace it happens and where it stops and where it ends. So there's a lot of control games going on, and thanks again. I'm really looking forward to working with you. This is actually we'll never get it. We'll never be empowered unless we actually start to focus on this kind of thing here. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And don't be discouraged either because the people somebody wrote something.
Yeah, this is actually someone who's watching. I don't think I have too many viewers, but this is. I do like to. Someone said that most people claim disabled because they are drug addicts. There is some of that does happen. I'm not. I've been around poverty too, but there also is a significant amount of disabled people that actually need help. So how are you going to actually get that together? So that's another. That's another show, another topic. If you want to come on and Untel 8G42 Enhance, come. Send me a DM or send me an email, and maybe we could talk about your issues. But right now, I'm learning about Ralph Yozzo, who's going to be a very key ally, as in terms of really democratizing things more and returning the power to the little people over the party bosses, who manage the narrative and maintain the control. So really excited to work with this guy. I do. Thanks again for watching once again, and we will continue to work on, but really we're focused on Ralph. So all right, cool. I don't think that was so much about you, right? We haven't talked about disabled or drug addict stuff with you yet, but these things will pop up later on. So, okay, let's continue on. Um,
And just a
and
final point is don't get discouraged because there'll be people that are in the machine, that are in the game, and they're going to do everything to discourage you. Yeah. So don't get discouraged.
Yeah, and just so you know, you can see over here, this is actually a list of all the different, registered, Republicans in the Chinatown district. I also have them for, in my particular, neck of the wood, which is only a 2 block radius. And I've actually visited them, and I made little notes about like which candidates they support, right? Whether they answered the door, whether they were receptive or not. And this type of data, I can use that later on to say, if I want the votes in this district to go a certain way, I know which doors to knock on and which not to knock on. and I can also start to play these games as well. Not saying that that's really in everybody's interest once again, right? But no two people can share all interests, all priorities or positions. But if we make this database available, you can do the same thing, right? Instead of playing these games or keeping it secret. So we're open sourcing it once again, and I'll ask you some other questions later about open source technologies and stuff like that. But I'm a big fan of your work, and we're going to see how we can really return power to the little people. So thanks again. Yeah, very excited to
Yes.
meet you. All
Yeah.
right. So the next question is going to be the thing is that a lot of people end up joining organizations. We talked about some of these problems with these organizations before, right? They kind of put a damp or they're meant to control the activism, how far it goes. But what so, but there's some organizations that mean well, they're doing with their own stuff. Some people join an organization, they find the organization not really helping them. But then also, if you run organizations, sometimes someone comes in and tries to co-opt or completely change the direction of the organization which had nothing to do with its original mission statement. What do you think are the best practices for organizations to engage in, so that they make sure they're addressing the needs of their members while not, losing track of their original mission that they're trying to work on?
That's a very hard question. I read some book that talks about this, how humans, the one thing that distinguishes us, I couldn't believe. You want to guess the? I would think the brain, wisdom, like the. You know what distinguished us? Gossip. We gossip. We're the one. So your question is, how do we organize? How do we scale? Is that basically, or summarize your question again?
Okay, so the thing is that a lot of people, when they first come into the activism game, right, and this is the online activism interview, so people are watching, they're trying to get help with their own issues. Maybe they don't really, right, their passion is not fixing the party politics, which is actually very relevant, but they're being evicted. Maybe this person is, felt like they were the victim of discrimination, and they're just kind of like entering into this kind of world. So they're going to be paying attention when you said, what is the most effective things activists can do? Now, another thing they might do is they might join an organization, and then they feel like the organization isn't really attending to their needs. Or maybe
Right.
they've just started an organization themselves to try to address something, and someone came into the organization and is trying to change the direction of that organization. So, what are some of the recommendations that you have for people that are either starting organizations or people that are joining organizations? They're not feeling like there's really that teamwork going on. Either their issues are being ignored. You can address both of them, right? From the organizer standpoint to the little person trying to get help, who finds that the organization is really focused on go to this protest, do this art build. Oh, you have a certain thing that you want to talk about. Guess what? We're not going to talk about it.
That that is a very, very hard question because even from both sides, right? Even the party boss, Bichette or Keith Wright, or they have little animosities too, right? Or little conflicts, and so obviously I don't see them because I'm on the outside. I'm a peon, right? But it's a very hard question. You're saying from both sides, how do we grow from a small, like you have a problem, you're getting evicted, or I see some guy in the Bronx, he's always at the city council, something, he was attacked by his whatever landlord or something. How do you build, if we all try to build our own political club, I think we're going to get nowhere, right? If everybody has their own organization and we're all atoms, then we're not. So I recommend that you find like-minded people near you, and you don't worry that you agree on every single little thing, right? I love Theo. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think his approach is right. He wants to use information, he wants transparency, he wants, so that's the thing. You, if you go and you're getting evicted, you better, I think it's best to focus on your particular issue, right? Don't try to build organizations or anything. Focus on your issue. But if you are doing it for the future, and so that in that area you find like-minded people like us, use the internet, use YouTube, use shorts, use tools, find people that like, that agree with you. I can't imagine 99.99% of the people, if you say to them, do you think we need government transparency? I think they would all say, yes, of course, right? But that ranks the lowest on the representatives. There's some bodies and whatever, the common cause or whatever. We have all these good. You ever see the word good government groups. Yeah, yeah, these good government groups have been around for 100 years. We still don't have good government, and but they at least ask the question, and they ask the candidates to rank. And you could look it up yourself. Government transparency is the bottom. If they could just delete it from the list, they would do that.
You know what?
So
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned Common Cause because Common Cause actually has their offices in the financial district of Manhattan. Are they compromised or not? Like, come on, folks. You know what I mean? Also, if you take like a Wolfpack and other groups I've worked with, I've reached out to all of them and worked with them to a certain extent. And
yeah,
even though they say a good line, there's a lot of shenanigans going on, folks. And I'm telling you right now that I would actually, I have my own take on that, but this is not about you, not me. But I think you gave a solid answer. Once again, you cannot trust anybody, and you made a good point of that, right? You have to stay focused on what you really need, right? And is this organization giving you? And there's a trade-off, right? Like they have certain resources, they have certain connections, and if it's not worth it, then you got to help yourself first. But if you feel like their mission statement overall is helping you and is giving valuable allies, then that's a worthy trade, right? You can't ask everything the whole organization to involute itself just on your behalf,
right, right.
right?
They're not
Unless
your
they have something to
personal.
gain, maybe they're trying to support you about big name recognition. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
so don't really sell yourself to the organization, and the organization has to sell to you, but just do what makes sense. So I appreciate that. That's a mature answer. Once again, I like that. So let's move on to we're ending the end of the online active review. Then we're talking about our own particular projects, right? But the thing is that a lot of people who are watching this may be new to activism, right? We know school does not teach activism, right? Actually, a lot of the true methods to power are actually deliberately suppressed by people with power so they can maintain their power. So, by the way, Asian understanding of this, right? When you take a look at China, and you see like all is Confucius or Zen, follow the rules or submit, right, or cope, right. A lot of dissident thought has been destroyed, and but they don't really talk about that here, right? When they so as in terms of right, maybe you're talking to someone who just kind of started out as an activist. Once again, people that are watching this channel, maybe your perspective has shifted over time. And what would you, if you were talking yourself back when you began? I think maybe this county committee stuff is really understanding the local point of it. It seems like I came to lasting conclusions myself. But what would be your advice for someone who's kind of like just starting off in activism, right? A student or someone who's undergoing their own problems about how to, you know, get involved in the process. And
Well,
like if you were looking, if you talked yourself back when you first started, what would you tell yourself?
well, wait here. I think I was blessed. So this is not actually something that's going to help us, but I think people should not focus. I mean, I think that if it was a good system, then we should focus on it. But if a person's coming out of school and they spend all the, because this political machine and this activism pays almost nothing, right? And so and they're willing to suck the blood out of individuals, right? The machine is willing to do that and spit them out, throw them in, spit them out. So this may not align with what you're thinking, but I would recommend that either we build the system and make it good and make people, then people should try to make it better, or you uh, get some stability first and then, because do not depend on the machine, right? The party machine, do not depend on it. Don't be dead broke and then come and try to be an activist. It's very hard. It's almost impossible, right? Because they'll see that and they'll say we'll break that person, lady, man, whatever, till they're really broke, and then they'll quiet down, right?
That's exactly what's happening to me, by the way. And the fact of the matter is that activism really can, you got the fake activism from the people in power that are trying to retain their power, but true activism is trying to speak truth to power. And the fact of the matter is that you can never really have a really matching relationship. And what happens is, we've been talking about suppression, we've been talking about all this stuff. It's impossible because it actually threatens the right. Without political power, your achievements will not be recognized, but they represent a threat. So the fact of
Yes.
the matter is that, yeah. So the fact of the matter is that you don't see me really recognized by any entities or media for my activist work, and that's the way it should be. So there's a certain, I do agree with what you said right there, and there's different angles to play at the same time, right? I'm always like hitting on multiple angles at the same time, but overall, I do definitely agree with that mentality, and I think it must be that way. It must. I don't think it's possible for it to be any other way, just from my understanding. But if you have different thoughts, put in the comments or below, or come on my show. We can have a discussion. But I really agree with Ralph in a lot of ways. I'm really looking forward to doing more work with him. All right, so now
I
that people, know that, right? I think that was a good answer. How can people follow your work? A lot of people follow this politician or they follow this cause, but a lot of those organizations go the way of the dinosaur, right? Yeah, like from was it Ralph Nader and his NIPERGs? They're trying to resurrect themselves. There's a lot of problems there. Not all good, not all bad, right? Dukakis, Jesse Jackson, Rainbow Coalition came and went. Ross Perot came and went. Meanwhile, you're still here. I'm still here 20, 30 years later. Um,
Yeah.
how can people follow your work?
Well, I
Yeah,
I have a whole bunch of websites under tidalforce.org. So it's like the force of the tide. So I could put it in the description or
sure.
whatever.
Put
And
in, I
most
don't
of
know
it,
if you have access to the chat, but
yeah, I
put it
could
in the
put it,
thing and I'll put it on the screen right now. Tidalforce.com.
yeah, in the private chat, I can put it in. I'll just put
Okay.
the
Oh, you
link.
don't have access to the public chat? Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
I
Is it just
might
like
or I
that,
might not.
tidalforce.com?
Yeah, it's tidalforce.org. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
I'll put the election one because that's a public database. I have some uh, databases behind paywall, but this was completely public because I want it to be public, right? And I see private chat, so I'll chat it to you. But it's not only this. There's voter. I see comments. Do I have to log in? No. Join the chat. So I guess I can join the chat too. Yeah. Yeah. Titleforce.org. That looks right. And it looks like I can connect. How do I send to the chat? Oh, here, connect to comment. Oh, join the chat. It says connect. Oh, I have to connect through YouTube?
Don't
Yeah,
worry, I
so
got it. Yeah, I'll take care of it. Just put it in the private chat, and I'll dump it onto the screen there.
okay,
Yeah.
cool, cool. Yeah, and yes, so I
Okay.
think
So now that people have your information, right, and hopefully that has links to all your social media, right, your Twitter, your Instagram, whatever, right? Um, how do we have any projects that the people can look forward to? You got anything coming up?
oh yeah, I have a voter database that is similar. It takes the New York State database, and there's these entities that'll charge $20,000, $30,000 for this data, and I want to make it much more open and shareable. So the voter database, there's already a campaign finance database that we just shared the link to, and also I also like to promote other people's work, like the Atlas one, and so my wife is texting, so I just want to text her that I'll be right there.
Go ahead. Yeah. While you're saying that, I just want to say right quick, I hope that all my people are paying super close attention right now. Okay.
If
Whether
I
you want to help
pause
a
for a
candidate,
moment,
whether you want to help a cause, the thing is that this information, once again, is highly kept secret. If they really wanted to empower
you
you, right, they have you go out and do a protest, they have you go out and wave your signs, right? Yeah, right, which might have their branding at the bottom, right? It's really millionaires controlling the whole narrative, exploiting our communities, right, to keep themselves in power. But if they really want to help us, they'd give us the data themselves and allow us to actually be effective as in terms of being able to change things later on. But they really, if you work for a campaign, they'll have a phone bank. You'll never get the phone numbers that they have. You'll never get the data that they have. You'll never get this information that would truly empower you. They're just using you for your cheap labor. So I need you guys to really understand that the path to your true freedom and the path towards your true effectiveness as an activist is reliant on you being able to have power to actually help yourselves. And a lot of you are being misled into, you mean well. I know a lot of you mean well, but you're sucked into, these traps that are out here to really, prevent activism from taking place. So thanks again. I think this is quite vital work. So I'll be finishing with Ralph in a moment, but these tools over here, such as this one that he's providing, may be essential. We're never trust anybody 100%, but if they're really on your side, they'll be actually making things happen in a positive way, and they'll be actually getting results, right? The thing is that if they're working for the other side, they cannot truly, keep producing results on the other side. They have to stop at some point. They have to somehow sabotage it. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to add that people don't say they're on the other side. They're smart
Oh
enough,
yeah,
and they're playing the game. They know to just undermine you in subtle ways.
oh yeah, they do it. They're doing it to me right now. It's disgusting, right? But the body of work has all been documented. So they'll have all the marketing and all the unfair BS. But just like Cat Williams said, right? The people that's fighting the Illuminati because they're always getting punched in the face. They're never really being talked about, right? That's here. And
Yeah,
these people that blow up right without a body of work, that the Illuminati's out there helping them, maintain control for the people with power.
exactly. If you read Thomas Paine, Common Sense, that's what
Yeah.
happened to Thomas Paine. Honest to goodness, I hear the story of Thomas Paine. Only 6 people were at his funeral. What the hell? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Who can, and like, he said bad things about George Washington, right? And so he was blacklisted. Like, this guy was involved in the French Revolution, the American Revolution. He was talking about the rights of man, and he's a bad mouth. Unbelievable.
George Washington wasn't all good or all bad, but the thing is that really your friends tell you the truth. So does that, just because he says bad things about George Washington doesn't mean that he's the enemy, right? It could mean
Exactly.
that he's actually an honest friend. Who knows, right? So you have to
Right.
really, but it's
Right.
possible both ways, right? It might be a little bit of both. But if
Yes, you're
someone
right.
cannot be honest with you, are they really your friend, or are they there because they want to use whatever you have for their own? They're not really your friend. That's just the way I understand it. So, thank you.
I couldn't
All
agree
right.
more.
So it's good for me to just get this kind of understanding of yourself. Now we can talk about our own particular plans about what we got going on. I do actually have I've been having a bunch of town halls. And what's funny is that even though I had a higher education town hall this year, right? There's a whole bunch of like young DSA stuff like that are actually having. I think it's the first year that they actually had a higher education town hall with the Democrats, which are actually which are not contacting me or anything or having a real conversation, because they're trying to control, who gets to participate in that and the topics that they're talked about. Um, just because someone's Democrat doesn't mean they're bad, by the way. It's the party leadership that is really, exploiting the students for their own mechanisms. Now, I do have a early childhood education discussion panel coming up. It's New York City's largest expenditure, more than the police, the fire, and the prisons combined, which is also not talked about because of the not-for-profit industry complex and the people that's making money off of it that are deliberately helping to squash this information. But maybe we could work together on that particular plan. There's also that's I think coming up in May, right? So I'm leaving April off, right, to do some planning. And then in May, before the primary, I'm trying to arrange some of these discussion panels. Also, just so you know, we could also reach out to all I think you're going to be a great weapon in terms of Jim Walden, in terms of getting the data for his team. Whether you support Jim Walden or not, whether you support even, right, the candidates that, even like if you support Mayor Adams or whatever, right? Like I talked to another organizer and said, look, I taught about the county committee, about how we have knowledge of what's going on a block to block basis, right? Yeah, I know how these voters think. I know where they are, where they're located, just the way these politicians do, right? Yeah, I've knocked on the doors, I had the one-to-one conversations, um, and I'm really such a big fan of the things that you're doing, and I hope that you can help your candidates. Once again, they never give this information, but if you walk up to them and say, I have this data, such as Ralph is providing, such as Theo is providing, you'll be worth a lot more to them. They'll also think that you're a little bit dangerous, right? And they may try to protect their other volunteers from interacting with you. I'm not saying I'm not saying they're all bad for that, right? But once again, is that in your interest or is that in theirs? Protect your own interests before you go about, right? Don't become a shill for them. You're really hurting them because their ideals cannot be realized by you playing these games. That's just my so. Thanks again for your work, Ralph. I really look forward to working with you deeper. And I just want to share your work. I will actually link directly to this in my next newsletter, which goes out to every single. I could show you who reads my newsletter, by the way. You can see news channels and a lot of electeds are on the newsletter. And but they don't want to admit it. Just like you said, they read
Yeah,
my stuff and they send out their orders about how to interfere with the work, and they some of them,
that's
some of them, yeah.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I was because I also interact with the SDA one. It's so confusing. SDA, DSA, like it's like people. I could just see them scratching their head. What the heck? And they talk in codes. They actually say things like you use the word primary, and now you're used to using that word, but they use a word called ledger. Right? There's a ledger, or so the Board of Elections has some kind of tally or daily ledger or something like that. And this is where the lawyers are in there blocking any insurgent candidate. The is
Oh,
to
I'm sorry, yeah.
block other Democrat candidates, right? That's their main task in life. It's just
This is going on
shocking.
right now, just so you and I actually have a video of the people knocking people off the ballot, including Andrea
Oops, sorry.
Espiat was kicked off the ballot on the Working Families
Oops, I
Party.
think I.
And the thing is that,
Hello?
right, I was talking with Gonzalo Duran, who's running for public advocate. He was unhappy about Dion Powell making those moves, right? But once again, if you, as a people that are out here fighting the good fight, right, you need to be able to understand how to use these techniques and these tactics. If you are never putting these things into play because you're scared about pissing off this person or that person, right? You'll never get a true working understanding of how to use this system. So whether you agree with it or not, right? For strategic reasons, whatever, right? Be careful about these candidates or these saviors that have 4D chess going on, right? If a lot of stuff is very simple, and there's pulling off a smoke screen, right? Because they want to control you. Not saying Gonzalez all good or all bad, right? He wasn't wrong to a certain extent, but once again, I do approve of people learning the techniques and the strategies. If they are weaponizing these tactics of kicking people off the ballot and primarying people, there's multiple ways to prevent someone from getting to a primary. Either you can run a candidate and pump them with money. You can challenge their ballot petitions. There's multiple tactics used, and you need to become an expert in these methods if you want to actually create change.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And you were talking about GitHub. I also created a campaign tracker GitHub account. It's just open source, everything. And it takes the Theo what they call ledger. And because Theo seems to upload and download the ledger 3 times a day or whatever from the Board of Election when it's important, because what do these candidates care about? They care about objections. They want to know if lawyers are objecting to their petitions, right? And so I went to Theo's site and downloaded all that stuff and uploaded it as text, right? Because now you can search on it and you can see your name and who's objecting to you. I'm sure there's easier ways, but definitely the Board of Elections is not helping, is not going to help us, right? Because at the end of the uh, funnel there are lawyers. And what do lawyers charge for this? They either
Oh,
get
they're making
paid
a
by,
bank.
say again?
They're making a lot of money. Yeah,
Yes.
and that's why they're controlling the information deliberately, like real estate brokers, right? Because they're selling the information that honestly could be free to the public, but that's how they're making lots of money. Information asymmetry. This is how a
It's
lot
our
of people get
own
rich.
it's our own information that they're selling back to us, right? And if they're not owned by the party machine, right, and getting, because some of them say I do it for free. Of course, because you're part of the machine. Like, dude, like they will eventually get a judgeship for hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions and millions of dollars, right? Because the party deals out the judgeships and the lawyer patronage jobs that goes along with it as currency. That's their currency. Their currency is these civil court judge, supreme. I think their major one is the Supreme Court judge, but all these civil court judges and these surrogate court judges, they want to be Supreme Court judges. So they have to play the game even beforehand. And
Yeah.
somehow, and that goes back to the court case, Justice Stevens could see that this is a corrupt system,
Oh, if
but
I could
Justice
mention something about the surrogate courts for a second, right? Yeah. Now, a lot of people don't know what the surrogate courts are, but let me tell you what the surrogate courts are and how
yeah,
this is really
yeah.
being abused big time. Now, the fact of the matter is that circuit courts are responsible for, like, putting out wills and stuff like that, or when people die, right? They're responsible for taking care of their estates. There's a lot of people who are single, who don't really have a family, right? Who die, and they have a lot of assets. Where do these assets go? There's right now there's actually a lady in Harlem, right? Her name is Kimberly Presley. Her building was bought for $1. Very strange. That property is worth over $1 million easy. Her property is built for $1. Now people from the not-for-profit industrial complex are trying to literally beat her out of her home, and there's a lot of collusion about what's going on. There's a lot of pathways to make money through control of the courts, surrogate courts, right? Think about how many people die who are single, and this number is going to go up. Where does all that money go? Nobody talks about it. These are being used to fuel political machines and bullshit. Dead serious.
And who appoints the lawyers? Because this doesn't happen by government employees. The lawyers are appointed by the machine. The
Are the
machine
party
appoints,
bosses?
and the district attorney is all in on it. And it's just a history. The party bosses, and who do you think is a circuit court judge? One of the party bosses, the former party bosses. If you go down the names, Vito Lopez, party boss; Meade Esposito, party boss; Clarence Norman, party boss. All of these people, or some, have gone into jail, right? And our current one, Frank Sedio, and then Bichette. Sedio was a circuit court judge. If I can search on Google to make sure, now he's a board of election commissioner. You know,
Yeah.
we might as well just take the fox and give him all the chickens. You say, and he'll eat them all and say, well, how many chickens are? Well, I don't think there were any chickens. How many legal ballots are there? Yeah, there were no legal ballots. Only these 6 that I have in my pocket here. This is
I'm going
what
to
we
say
got.
something in the defense right quick, just so you know, right? The thing is that we know a lot of people in the NBA, a lot of people in the major baseball league are using illegal and performance enhancing drugs. But the thing is that their competition is also using illegal enhancing drugs, so they're kind of forced to play that game that way, right? So we want
And
to blame them and
cyclists.
call them the bad guy, but we ourselves as the consumers, we ourselves as political forces have to hold these athletes accountable, and then we can have a fair game. But when we're not looking and we're right, we don't care about them using performance enhancing drugs, and we just say whatever. And sometimes this is very dangerous, right? Like in boxing, right, where the enhancing drugs are literally endangering people's lives, but people don't care. They just want to show. So when we don't pay attention, we leave them, right? So we are right to actually condemn them, say they're not being honest. But we've left them a game where they're almost forced to play this way because everybody else is corrupt in that game too. As citizens, we have to get involved and point out what's going on. Otherwise, I, in their defense, which they're doing is not good, right? Which is actually hugely disturbing. But really, it's up to us to make this change. So I just want to put that out there. Yeah, I don't. If you're a party boss, I understand. I understand. But once again, right, I'm part of the movement to try to. This is not necessarily targeting you. I understand it's an unfair game that your opponents are using unfair stuff. I'm just trying to clean it up, bro. Not trying to victimize you or right. Just trying to clean the system up. That's all.
And you are correct. We are not innocent in this. We are culpable. And Pete Seeger, I don't know if everyone knows, folk singer from upstate New York, Beacon, he said it best where he said, our leaders are the finest men, and we elect them again and again. That is just perfect. Just perfect because
Yeah,
we basically, if you listen to that song, it's perfect. It's just perfect because
I get that. Yeah, and then who's really making money is the other side by projecting them as completely evil, right? But when they're doing the same game, so wake up, get involved. I'm with you, bro. I love it so much. So,
it's not
you
a
know,
game, right? You're right. It's real life. It's not a
yeah,
game. It's your
this is
children's future.
yeah, if you take a look at baseball and basketball, right, because millions of dollars at stake, but this is for the whole pie. This is for determining what's legal and what's illegal, determining real power. So if you look at NBA and how many people are using performance enhancing drugs, and you're like, well, that's normal, right? The
I
politics game is going to be even more dirty because there's too much at stake.
Right. And I say if we were sitting down, you and I, or the 3 or 4 people, in trying to design the most corrupt system in the world, we could not have done a better job than the one we have.
Yeah.
literally, where we in the Constitution list that two political parties will dominate the election. It's written right in the New York State Constitution. It just makes no
And
sense.
another problem is that honestly, the people with the power and the money, right? Yeah, they've learned the technology, or they've been able to hire technology at a faster rate than working class or actually poor people. So the fact of the matter is that they've made a lot of advancements in tech, whereas we have been kind of like left behind. So we need to play catch up just the way that their stuff has evolved. We need to evolve. And I really see what your work is, being part of an essential part of actually democratizing and fighting for the future of society and freedom as dead serious. So I really appreciate you coming on my show. But now it's just freestyle. Is there anything else that you want to bring up too? Or maybe it's just about an hour. Maybe it's enough for people to digest. But I'm really excited to work with you. I really plan on doing a lot more long-term stuff with you.
Absolutely. I would love to come back, and yeah, we'll keep them short so that people don't get too worked up. But
Okay.
one thing I wanted to point out is we do have an opportunity, because you're correct that the machine should have advanced technology and things like that. But I can vouch for the disaster that we have here in Brooklyn. They are way behind. So we have an opportunity to wake up, because remember, the younger generation does not even know the names, right?
Okay. I think I'm
And so,
dropping out. Yeah.
oh, you're dropping. You're okay. Cool, cool. So I think we have an opportunity that I want to point it out. Hello, hello. You're still there? Hello, hello. It's okay. Sorry, sorry, sorry. I'm gonna pause it too. Oh, oh, sorry, 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 sorry.
Thanks again. Okay.
Hey,
I got.
sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
I'm gonna hang up. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay. You're there.
this
Yeah.
is a
Okay.
good time to
Yeah.
end. If you want, yeah. But
Can
yeah,
you hear
thank
me?
you so much, DJ.
Just a second. The phone. Yeah.
Hello, hello. You're still there,
Hey,
right?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I can turn off my
Hello.
video. Maybe that'll make it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I wrote in the comments. Let's continue whenever you want. Next week, next month, whatever's good for you. I'm gonna drop off the studio